go forward with the trial on Wednesday, I need you in your trial clothes, okay? Dress for trial on Wednesday. We're going to have jurors here Wednesday. As to count 1, tampering with a witness in a capital felony, and count 7, unlawful use of a two-way communication device, how are you going to plead, sir? Guilty, not guilty, or no contest?
There'd been a whole bunch of speculation going around it in Reddit. There'd been rumours of this plea being offered to him. This was 4 days ago. It says YNW Bortlen facing 5 life sentences. Should he stay solid or take the plea? Take the 16-year plea and be free after all those years, or stay solid to Melly and go to...
Could YNW Bortlen really have been attacked in prison? That's the rumor spreading online ever since he took that plea deal in the YNW Melly case. The moment he stood before the judge and admitted to accessory after the fact, the internet labeled him a snitch. And if you know anything about prison life, that kind of label can change everything. On paper, Bortlen might have saved himself from a life sentence, but inside, that move could come with serious consequences. Reports suggest he's been facing tension from other inmates who believe he cooperated, even though his plea deal didn't require testifying. Too many, a plea deal automatically means you talked. And once that idea takes hold, it's hard to shake. Meanwhile, YNW Melly's name has been pulled into the mix too, with some reports claiming he's been moved into isolation, though it's unclear whether it's for his safety or due to rising tension behind bars. If Bortlen's statement ends up being used in court, Melly knows his chances of beating the case could drop drastically, turning this situation from a legal matter into one of survival. One man under pressure inside, the other cut off from everyone else. Both still tied to the same 2018 case that started everything. The real turning point came on August 2nd, when Bortlen walked into court facing 2 first-degree murder charges that could have locked him away for life. Instead, he accepted a deal, pleading no contest to lesser charges, including witness tampering, accessory after the fact, and using a communication device. That deal reduced his sentence to 10 years in prison, followed by 6 years of probation. And since he's already served about 6 years, he could be free in his early 40s. But even though that deal shortened his sentence, it may have changed everything about his future. Because in the world he's in now, freedom doesn't always mean safety.
I will accept your no contest pleas as to each. I'm going to find a factual basis to support each based upon my review of each electronic probable cause affidavit as well as your stipulation in court here today. I'm going to further find that you have freely, voluntarily, and intelligently waived your rights, that you have knowingly entered each plea with the advice of competent counsel who you've told me that you are satisfied with, that you understand the nature of the charges and the consequences of the plea.
Now, on paper, it sounds like a win for YNW Bortlen. But the moment the judge approved that plea deal, the reaction outside told a different story. The streets and the internet moved fast, flooding social media with mixed opinions. Some fans defended him, saying they wouldn't blame him for taking the deal, while others jumped to assumptions, claiming he had turned on his people. Even though his lawyer made it clear that the plea wasn't an admission of guilt, most people didn't see it that way. And that's where things started to get tense. In prison, reputation means everything. And once your name gets linked to the idea of snitching, that label can follow you everywhere. It's not just talk, it changes how people look at you, how they move around you, and how safe you really are inside. And you could see how quickly that label spread. One fan even pointed out that Bortlen's own lawyer admitted he would still have to answer questions in court, which only fueled the speculation even more.
But here's how it's very, very bad for Melly. Bortlen's lawyer talked to the media after the plea and said, quote unquote, he will testify Melly's trial and be asked a couple questions.
And let's not forget, prison politics are deeply connected to what happens on the streets. The same groups, crews, and alliances that exist outside still carry influence inside those walls. So, if people on the outside believe you turned your back on someone like YNW Melly, that reputation doesn't stay on social media, it follows you straight into the prison yard. That kind of label spreads fast and changes how everyone around you acts. Here's how one former inmate described it. When someone walks into the system with that kind of reputation attached to their name, every move they make gets watched differently. And earning trust again becomes almost impossible.
One day, someone's gonna walk into that prison and say that motherfucker there is a rat and show paperwork. Now, whoever's your friends, whoever you break bread with, whatever organization, race, color, creed, religion that he rides with, it's mandatory, one, that they get him removed from that cell block, put in PC. And if he's part of an organization or represents a certain religion or standards of a certain way of life that he represents, the people that live that way of life also will stab him, beat him half to death, extort him, and make his life a living hell. The rules in prison, as barbaric as it sounds, if you find out your bunkie's a snitch, if you find out anybody's a snitch and you let them live peacefully, then your ass is gonna get dealt with.
So while YNW Bortlen might be counting down the days, thinking, I'll be out in my 40s, the reality could be a lot more complicated than that. If this reputation continues to spread the way it already has online, it could make his time behind bars even more unpredictable. And if you think that might be an exaggeration, history shows just how serious these situations can get. In the hip-hop world, once that snitch label gets attached to someone's name, it often brings heavy consequences, not just in reputation, but in how people treat you. Take the case of Nipsey Hussle, for example. Back in 2019, outside his Marathon clothing store in Los Angeles, an argument reportedly broke out after rumors surfaced about paperwork involving another man. Prosecutors later said that confrontation was one of the key moments that led to tragedy only minutes later. It showed the world how dangerous that label can become when pride, loyalty, and reputation collide. To understand just how serious this can get, here's Whack 100 explaining how a simple conversation about snitching spiraled into something that changed everything forever.
At the end of the day, the rules of the jungle is the rules of the jungle. You know, when you call somebody certain things, every action gets a reaction. And this particular individual, everybody knew dude was a rider. You know, they knew he was about that life. You know, you can't call a dude a snitch in his face and expect him not to respond. Now, I think Nipsey might have been upset about something else, because it really don't seem like him just to do that, but he did that. And it's no shock. It's like everybody's like, oh, what happened? You know what happened a million times. Dude called him a snitch. He came back, he killed you.
Then there's FBG Duck out of Chicago. Drill culture has always carried its own level of danger. But when rumors about snitching start to spread, that danger multiplies fast. In Duck's case, street talk and online speculation tied his conflicts and his tragic death in 2022, the same cycle of betrayal, accusations, and retaliation that has taken hold of so many artists from that scene. It's a reminder of how quickly reputation and street politics can blur together, especially when everyone's watching and talking online. To understand just how deep that culture runs, here's a clip showing how street ties and rivalries can resurface even in the very cases connected to those same events.
I smoked the wood to the duck. Smoked the wood to the duck, you know? It can happen to you. You could die. Whatever can happen, like, you know, anywhere, you know, like, it could just happen, like, you know, we dangerous, like, we pull up on you and shit, like, you know, like your taco. I'm on house arrest. But this can happen, like, it can happen, like, whenever, wherever.
Even in the case of XXXTentacion, who was tragically killed in 2018 during what authorities described as a robbery, that same fear and paranoia around snitching still surfaced later. One of the men indicted in the case reportedly admitted he was terrified of being labeled a snitch once he entered prison. That fear alone shows how deeply this mindset runs in street and prison culture, where reputation can sometimes feel more dangerous than the crime itself.
Disturbing surveillance video showing the murder of South Florida rapper XXXTentacion and the moments leading up to it.
The 20-year-old was killed back in June, and 4 men have since been indicted.
Now, here's where the fallout gets even messier. If YNW Bortlen thought he was just protecting himself, the reality is his plea deal might actually become the biggest problem for YNW Melly's defense. Remember, Melly's entire legal strategy has always been built around denial. His team insisting he wasn't there, he didn't pull the trigger, and that the evidence doesn't tie him directly to the crime. But the moment Bortlen signed that deal, that defense started to crack. Why? Because plea deals often come with conditions, and they give prosecutors leverage, even if Bortlen isn't officially cooperating. The state now has the power to call him for sworn statements or testimony that could be used to challenge Melly's version of events. And if that happens, Melly's already difficult case could become nearly impossible to win. Even DJ Academics broke it down in detail, explaining how that one decision might have changed everything about the case's direction.
Later happened is they realized a few things. When they asked where were y'all originating from, it became obvious, talking to multiple people and him, they came from a studio. They got the surveillance footage of the studio. 4 people entered like a SUV, but only 3 individuals showed up to the hospital. Where's the 4th? The 4th is Melly. They asked him about Melly. He was very, we dropped him off. Where? Somebody just picked him up. He was very vague. At some point, Melly had gotten out of the car.
And while YNW Bortlen's name is catching heat on the outside, the real storm seems to be happening around YNW. Melly reports say guards didn't waste any time moving him out of general population. He was placed straight into isolation. On paper, that could look like a safety measure. He's a high-profile inmate, and any tension tied to his name could easily spark issues inside. But according to people following the case closely, there might be more to it. Some believe Melly wasn't moved just for protection. They claim it's because emotions inside were running high after Bortlen's plea deal. And honestly, that theory makes sense. Melly's defense was already hanging by a thread, and once Bortlen accepted his deal, everything changed. If prosecutors decide to bring Bortlen in for sworn statements, that alone could weaken Melly's entire "I wasn't there" defense. And if that happens, the outcome could shift from years in prison to life without parole. What most people missed, though, is that Bortlen's plea deal came with strings attached. As part of the agreement, he's required to sit down for what's called a proffer session, basically. A formal meeting with prosecutors where he gives a sworn account of his version of events. His attorney insisted it wasn't an admission of guilt and that it doesn't force him to testify against Melly, but still. A sworn statement is a powerful tool for prosecutors, and depending on how it's used, it could become a major weapon in court. Even Bortlen's own lawyer had to clarify what the deal really meant, trying to explain why it shouldn't automatically be seen as snitch.
It's given me the chance to clear up a lot of the confusion and just chaos that's happening online right now. It's clear that a lot of people just don't understand what has happened. In all, he was facing 5 mandatory life sentences if found guilty, plus an additional 75 years on top of that. And the facts of his plea are that he has pled no contest. That's very important because that means he has not admitted guilt. He's not admitted that he's done anything wrong. And he's certainly not admitted or given information about anybody else. He's been found guilty, and in exchange, the state has dismissed the murder counts, the conspiracy to tamper with a witness count, and the charge about directing the activities of a criminal gang. He's going to be sentenced to 10 years in Florida State Prison, followed by 6 years of probation with credit for time that he has served.
Even if Bortlen never takes the witness stand, the prosecution still has leverage. That signed proffer alone is like evidence they can wave in court. They don't need him pointing fingers in person. His words on record are enough to shake Melly's entire defense. Remember, Melly's whole case was built on one simple idea. I wasn't there. You can't prove it. But now, with Bortlen's statement sitting in the prosecutor's file, that story starts to fall apart. And that's why people online are saying, Bortlen might have just saved himself while locking Melly into a lifetime battle. Because once that proffer is introduced, the state doesn't have to do much twisting. The perception alone can do the damage. To the streets, it looks like confirmation that the brotherhood between them is broken. So, while Melly sits in isolation fighting for his freedom, that once solid image of brothers for life is starting to crack. It's no longer about loyalty, it's about survival. With Bortlen's deal sealed and that proffer looming over the case, Melly's reality just changed. He's not only cornered in the courtroom, he's surrounded by the consequences that come when trust turns into testimony.